Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Randy Rothy. I'm with Silex Software. I'm here today to present Advanced SCCM Baseline Authoring using CP Studio. I have a few slides I want to go through and share with you, and we'll switch over to the actual live demo. Today's session is being recorded, and that will be made available as soon as possible, perhaps as soon as this afternoon, but if not later today, it will be sent out in an email tomorrow, so you'll have the link to access that. Thank you to everyone joining. I see several customers are connected and on the call today. That's excellent. I would like to point out in the application, the GoToWebinar application, there is an option there to submit questions. And joining me today on the call is one of our developers, and he is intimately familiar with CP Studio, and hopefully we can answer any questions you might have today. If not, we'll send along the answers afterwards in a follow-up email. So by all means, if you have any questions, now's a great time to submit those throughout the webinar, and Dan will be answering those in the background while I continue through the presentation. Let me tell you a little bit about Silex Software. We're founded in 2003, so we're into our 14th year now, which is very cool. And we're one of the original founding members of the System Center Alliance. Over the past 13 plus years, our solutions have grown from a simple reporting solution to full-blown authoring capabilities and compliance monitoring and reporting capabilities. So you can see in the orange block here some of our products. We actually have some others that are being made available and haven't been added to this slide yet, but I'll go from the bottom up here. The MP Author Professional, and MP Studio products, these are tools that you would use if you're running Operations Manager, and some of you are probably running both Operations Manager and Config Manager, so you're welcome to try those out if you haven't already. I'm happy to do a one-on-one demo of those products at any time. The HITRUST pack is either a management pack or a baseline that we've developed in partnership with Microsoft and HITRUST. And the HITRUST pack is used to monitor various HIPAA controls. And so companies that are in the healthcare organization need to comply with HIPAA requirements. And so we've developed this pack that will go out and actually monitor and report and provides remediation for a large percentage of the controls that are used to determine compliance. The product we're here to look at today is CP Studio, and in fact CP Studio can run the HITRUST pack, so I'll be able to show you a little bit of that in today's presentation. Last but not least, I'd like to mention that we do offer services here at Silex Software, whether it's custom development of management packs or baselines. We're also here to help you with OMS proof of concepts. If you're at that stage or you're looking to do some customization, we can help with that. We're also Red Carpet Power BI partners, and we can also help with your Azure requirements. So by all means, if you would like to know more about that, I can send you some information or we can discuss that offline. Silex Software's applications are used by over 6,000 users worldwide and 5,000 unique organizations. That's awesome. Pretty much every industry out there, and we get a lot of feedback which helps us build better products. So we're always interested in your comments, suggestions, feature requests, bug reports, etc. And so at any time you have a feature request, you can just send an email to info@silex.com, perhaps a feature request in the subject line, and let us know what you'd like to see. For those of you who are totally new to CP Studio for authoring baselines, if you're running settings management or in earlier versions of SCCM desired state monitoring, then CP Studio is a tool that you would want to be using. I may repeat this more than once throughout the session, but CP Studio makes authoring baselines really easy. And if you've done that before, if you've done that with native tools, you will already know this. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of manual typing, copy and paste, jumping back and forth between other tools, registry editor, etc., looking for the CIs that you want to use, and then putting that into SCCM and creating your baselines can be labor intensive, error prone, and very, very challenging and time consuming. So hopefully you'll see after this webinar that creating baselines in CP Studio is very easy. I will be demonstrating the Golden Master Wizard, and that gets you a very good start into the process. But as you add CI types, you'll discover that it's pretty much a browse, select what you want, and then create the CI from that browse and select. So there's a lot more you can do once you've authored your baseline. And so I'll be showing this to you, this pre-deployment testing and tuning capability. So you can tweak your CIs and then test them or retest and point that test. And it basically loads the baseline and tests all the CIs that are in that baseline against one or more servers on your network. So you could test against one, or you could test against dozens of servers out there. CP Studio has a database backend, and that allows you to do several cool things, including version control and auditing. So if you've got a team of resources who may be creating baselines, you'll be able to track who made which changes and when. You can also go back to an earlier version if you wanted to of any given baseline. Okay, so it's important to note that we do support SCCM 2007, 2012, and for those of you who've migrated to 2016, yes, we also support that. As you'll discover in the demo, and I've made a note to show this to you as well, you can export any of the baselines that you create to a CAB file, or you can push them directly into your SCCM environment. Okay, so just a couple of notes before we get into actually viewing the console. This session should take approximately 30 more minutes to finish, and I apologize that is set on a timer and advanced against my will. So let's go back to that slide. So after the webinar, we will send a follow-up. There'll be a download link with for a version of CP Studio that includes a valid license that will expire April 30th. So we encourage you to install that. It's very easy to install and get up and running. If you have questions or you'd like a one-on-one session afterwards, some help installing, just send me an email and or contact info@silac.com, and we'll arrange to guide you through the process. It'll save you a little bit of time. We also are providing a free copy, evaluation copy of a security baseline called SCCM Sentinel, and that's also valid until April 30th. Time allows, I'll give you a quick peek at that here today. As a part of today's webinar, we're offering special pricing on CP Studio. So typically a license is $2,500 US, so this is a really good drop, really good sale. And we're also providing the first year's annual maintenance and support at no charge. So typically that costs you an extra 20%. So as long as you purchase before May 15th, you'll qualify for that special pricing and the no charge maintenance for the first year. And as I mentioned, we will send a follow-up email after today's webinar. There will also be a pop-up survey at the end of the session, or you'll get it in email if you exit. And so we'd ask you to complete that survey. It helps us build better products and respond to the things that you're interested in. Now, I did say I would go right into a product demo. Just before I do that, I'm going to launch 2 polls, and you'll see that come up, and I'll just ask you, if you don't mind, take a quick minute. They're simple yes, no polls, and this will be useful for us. So the first question is, are you using SCCM Compliance Management today? And you should be seeing that. Please, by all means, go ahead and choose yes or no. And we do have several people on the webinar today, so I'm just going to let that run a little bit longer. And we're pretty much at an even split, interestingly enough, right down the middle, 50-50. Okay, so I'm just going to put that up. I'm not sure if you can see the results, but it was 48% yes and 52% said no in terms of our using systems, SCCM compliance. And I'm now going to launch the second poll. And this one is, have you authored a compliance baseline in SCCM itself? Again, a yes, no. So have you authored a compliance baseline in SCCM? Early results are about a 50-50 split. Well, maybe I shouldn't be surprised at that either. I'll just let that go for a few more seconds, give everybody a chance to respond to that. Okay. So this was a 61% no and 39% said yes. So those of you who have not done it, speak to the ones who have done, because they'll all confirm what I said earlier. It's very time-consuming and difficult to create baselines natively. And so what I'm going to do next is we'll get started. And you should be able to see my CP Studio console now. And just confirming the recording is rolling. Okay, so we're good to go. So I have already created a folder here, a policy folder with my name on it. You can create any policy folder you want. If you've got multiple admins that are going to be working with it, you might want each of them to have their own folder to store their baselines in there. And I just want to come back here briefly. So Dan, I'm not sure if you see there are questions coming in, so I'll leave that to you. And you can also use the chat window, but the questions probably a little better to put them in there. It'd be easier for everyone to see the answers and questions. So, okay, I will proceed with the demo, and at the end we'll come back for more Q&A as well. Okay, so to begin with, I'm going to launch the Golden Master Wizard. I'll use the toolbar button, but you could also use a right click and launch it from there. And I'm going to create the baseline in the folder with my name on it. Okay, so it's just a short wizard. We can see the table of contents down the left-hand side here, and we're going to create this configuration baseline.
Excuse me, Randy, if I may interrupt. You're still sharing the poll screen. We're not seeing your CP Studio window.
Good man. Thanks, Dan. And I forgot to close that poll, so that's probably why. Yes. Okay, I'm going to hide that. And is that clear now? So you can see my screen okay, Dan?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, apologize for that. And all you really missed, I'm going to cancel this briefly, was to go back and right-click on the root policy folders, create policy folder, and now I can create one here. So I've got one with my name on it. I'm going to launch the wizard from the toolbar button. Okay. And so there's a table of contents down the left. We're going to go through each of these steps here as we create our configuration baseline. But with CP Studio, you can scan a machine that you've selected as your Golden Master. So you've got the application running on a server on your network. You've invested time. You've got the hardware the way you want. You've got the OS version where you want it. You've got the application installed, whatever bug fixes you need on there. Okay, so that's your master, Golden Master box, and you just point the wizard at that server. Okay, so let's start. So the first thing we need to do is pick that machine on the network. Pardon me, I've got a bit of a dry throat here. I'm just going to clear my throat. Okay, so I would enter the necessary credentials to connect to that machine on my network. For ease of demonstration, I'm just going to use my local machine as I run this. So you would need to have, administrative privileges on that box that you're going to connect to out there. Okay, so here's my scanning options. I can modify this if I want. We're going to first scan for the operating system, and we're also going to scan for applications. Now the radio button here says check for existence only. However, if you want, you could instead drill down deeper and get more file details. So you might want, let's just see what some of the options here might be for file validation options, things like date created, attributes, so on and so forth, file size, version, etc. Okay, so I'm not going to go in for the details. Instead, I'm just going to scan for the existence of those applications. I'm also going to scan for group policy. Okay. So we're ready. We've discovered the operating system here, and we're going to include that in my baseline. Now we're scanning the group policy. I typically get a bit of a warning message here because I've got a problem with one of my ADMX files. And that might just limit some of the policies I'll have access to on this box, but we should still discover something. This should be just about complete. Sure enough, I've just got a little trouble with that one TPM ADMX file, but it'll probably limit some of the policies I would normally see. But we should still get something we can work with. Sure enough, we've got some Windows Update stuff here. So what I'm going to pick from my group policies, let's use the Configure Automatic Updates. Now, all I need to do is pick what I want here and then click on the Add button to include that. Okay. And there we have it. Click OK. Now it's enumerated all the installed applications, and so I can pick the ones that I want to discover. And I'm going to use this ANT drivers installer. I've got a Garmin watch and I download my training results onto my laptop. So I'm going to create a baseline for that. Not so exciting, but it serves the purpose. Let's give this a name. Okay, I added a couple of words there for my description. And so that's it. We've got this started and we're well underway. Okay, so let's just take a quick look at what we've got. Here's our Windows operating system. There's my ANT drivers installer that I included, Garmin Express and the Garmin Express tray. There's also our group policy, and here we can see configure automatic updates. Okay, so down the left-hand side we've got our list of policies. In the middle we can see the CIs as we're authoring them, and on the right-hand side you can see the properties. I don't typically edit much over there, but anything that's bold, you could modify those right in the properties view edit window. We will edit something. Why don't we do that for fun? I'll come back to the operating system here. And maybe before we do that, I mentioned we do version control and auditing. So I'm just going to save this baseline now as is. Okay, so I've clicked on the Save Toolbar button, and next I want to check it into the database. So we start to have more than one copy in there so that I can later show you the audit history. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and check that in. This is the first version going in there. And let's now open that up. We'll check it out so we can do some more work on it, add some more things into that. And one of the things I wanted to do was come in here and play around with this Windows 10 version number. And so what I'm going to do here is I want to go in, I'm just going to modify the SP major version number. You'll see why later when I run a test. I want some of these CIs to fail. So we know what we discovered. It didn't have an SP major of 1, it was 0. So I'm just going to edit that. And let's now save that again. And so this time when I check it in, it's going to compare the new version of the baseline to the previous version. And it'll show me a summary of the changes that we made. So here we can see what's been done. We've modified the version, of course, and we've added the discovery info here and modified that version. So there's just a little bit of, preview, 1 addition, 1 deletion, 2 changes. We'll go ahead and check that in. And we'll check it out. We'll do that a couple more times just to get multiple versions in here. Okay, so I'm going to right click and I want to show you, here's where you would go in and add some additional things. Perhaps you want to add a prohibited application into your baseline, or even an optional application. Let's add a prohibited application. I'm sure I've got some of those on my laptop. Now we could add that manually if you wanted to. It's not recommended, but in some cases you may not have a choice. But if you have access to the server that's running that application you're creating the baseline for, you can just simply use that machine on the network. In my case, I'm going to use the local machine. Click OK. It's enumerating the list of applications. So maybe I'll put these Apple products in as prohibited. Or if I scroll down, I know I'm running iTunes here. And so I'll add that as a prohibited application. Okay, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we're going to check that in just a couple more times. It's comparing it again to the previous version. Okay. And we can see what was changed here. There's my addition. Check it out again for auditing. Okay, so this time let's explore some of the other CI types that you could add if you wanted to. So first I'm going to create a general settings layer here. And now right-clicking here, I have some other options and in terms of settings that I could add. So I'm not going to add one of each of these. We'll add a few of them. I could add a file object, folder object, a registry setting, a SQL setting. We'll add a WMI setting, so I'll walk you through that. You can add Active Directory, XPath query, script, a group policy, and under other you have some options in here as well, including complex settings. So those are some additional options in there, and let's just walk through a couple of these. Let's add a file object, and again we're going to use the builder here, and I'm just going to use my local machine, but you could browse out to that server on your network. Let's see, what have we got here? Nothing too interesting in terms of my Garmin application. So what I'm going to do instead, I'll just go into Program Files, MP Studio, V7, and in here I'm sure I've got a license file. So maybe that would be something we could use. There it is. There's my license file. So I'm going to create a CI for that. This should pass because hopefully I've got a license for MP Studio on here. Next, let's go in and I suppose we can add a folder object. Yeah, I'm just looking for something interesting. Maybe we'll drill down in here. Select MP Studio V7, and I'll pick the reports folder. Okay, so those are pretty straightforward. Let's do something a little more interesting. This time let's add a registry setting. Now this will start to give you an idea. If you had to build a registry key manually, it would be very easy to mess that up. So this is very typical of how CP Studio allows you to avoid those fat finger errors. And I'm just going to go into local machine software. Let's see, I will add something from Hewlett Packard maybe. Here's a reference count. Once I've found what I want to add, I can just hit the add button. It might be a little bit more involved than that. You could add something fairly significant. Let me see if I've got something that would be okay. So let's just add that entire V3 folder. So there's quite a bit in there. It gives you an idea just how quickly you can add these registry keys into a CI. Yeah, I hope it wasn't a mistake to add so many, but so we've got lots in there. You can go in and delete from here as well if you decide you want to do that. Okay, so let's see, what else have we got? I'm just going to go ahead and save that and check that in again. And so we can see here the insertion that we've just done, some general settings. Let's go ahead and check that in. Okay, what else can we add? Let's do, this time we'll do a WMI setting. And this is a little bit more involved. Again, I'm going to use my local machine, but you could run this against a machine on your network, and you can see why you would need administrative privileges out there, because we're going to use this and discover all the DMI or WMI out there on that remote machine. And so there's a few steps here. So the first one, I need to select a namespace or class. And what I'm looking for is going to be the Win32 services. A lot in here. Let's see. There we go. So I'm going to select Win32 service, and let's retrieve that class. So now we need to complete step 2 and step 3 in order to build our query. So looking in the table in step 2, I need to select a record. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to scroll to the right here. Here's a display name column. I'm going to click on that to sort alphabetically. Let's see if we have anything under G for Garmin. Okay, so there's my Garmin device interaction service. Okay, so I've selected the record. Now in step 3, to complete this, creating the query definition, I actually need to do two things. Okay, so the first one, I'm going to check the property that taken together needs to uniquely identify a record. Okay, so let's see. And then in the second step, I highlight a property whose value I want to verify. So let's see what we've got. I could go with display name. Okay, so I've checked display name, and the value that I want to verify could be, any of these: install date, path name. I'm going to go with the start mode. So this time I'm not checking it, I'm just highlighting it. Now if I make some type of a gross error in building this query, we'll actually do some verification and generate an error if it's not a valid WMI query. Okay, so we've built our WMI query, and all I need to do now is click on OK, and we've added that down at the bottom. Okay, so again, just to reiterate, on the right-hand side, there are options over there. I can modify anything that's bold in here, so I could edit the property. I could further modify that where clause if I wanted to change the class, etc. Okay, and let's now, there's a couple more things I want to add into this baseline before we finish. Just checking my list. The next piece I'd like to do is demonstrate what I think is one of the more powerful features, and that's the ability to copy something out of another baseline. So we ship CP Studio with these Microsoft Security Compliance Baselines, okay, or you might have others that you have access to. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to scroll in and let's see what we can find. I don't know, I'm going to go with Windows 10, 1607 BitLocker Security DCM. So I'll just pop that open. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pick one of these and choose copy. Okay, then I'm going to come back to my garment. Now this might not be the best example, but what I'm doing is I'm copying from one baseline into another baseline. Why would you want to do that? Well, if somebody's already built a really good baseline or CI, or maybe you've already done it and you just want to bring some of that stuff into a newer baseline, you can just copy the CI out of one and paste it into another. Okay. So here's my option. If I just come down to General Settings, right click, and there's my option to paste. And so we've taken from one baseline, pasted it into another. Let's do just one more of those. For example, I could come down into, and this is the first time I've tried this. I probably shouldn't do that, but I'm brave. Let's try this out. So here is the Silex Sentinel Security Pack. This is one of those new products that didn't make it onto the list on the slide, but we're providing a 30-day evaluation of this security baseline. Let's just see what have we got in here. Audit printer events enabled. So I could copy that. Let's just bring that over here into my new baseline, and I can paste that in there. So it gives you a pretty good idea of the flexibility in growing your baseline. Let's just save that. And next we're going to take a look at some of the audit reports, auditing capabilities. Pardon me. Okay, so I first want to save that. And I'm going to close the other two that we're not working with really. And let's check it in. And so when you do that check-in, it compares it to the previous copy, and we can see the list here. We've got 3 additions and 2 changes being made. If I want to look closer at what was done, here they are in the general settings, what's been added in there. Okay, the time of the change, the time of the change and who made the change. So that's all important information, especially if you're working, in a team and you start to do some debugging. It's nice to know who made what changes and when. So that's just a preview of that audit history. Okay, so now let's come back and take a closer look. You could see the version history. Let's see that first. So here are all the different versions that we had worked with. So version 83, 84, 85, 86, and 87. What was done in each of those, an insertion, a deletion, 2 changes. So that gives you, some indication of what's gone on over the time you've been working on that. Notice there's an option here to get the highlighted version if you wanted to work with an older version for one reason or another. And there are the details of the differences between this one and the previous copy. Okay, let's now take a look at a more detailed audit history. And so we can see the grid on the right-hand side. A couple of things about this you'll appreciate that's similar to our other applications. You can customize this table. So for example, if you've got multiple users working on a given baseline, you might want to group by created by, and then you could see the changes you made. Maybe you also want to group based on changed on. So this will give you sort of a relative time frame for changes. And I'm sure you'll come up with others that are perhaps more interesting to you. And here you can see, good information, the file name, creation date, what was done. I might even group by that and see, okay, so here are the deletions, here are the insertions, and the changes. If you want to document this information, you can highlight one or more rows and just simply export to Excel. Okay, so that's my version history and how to document that if you want to share that with management or other stakeholders working on the application. And okay, so we've gone through creating our CIs. We've taken a look at some of the auditing capabilities, but now I want to test this baseline that we've created. So you could have, you've got your golden master and the team has put together, they've stood up some more of those servers and that application. And you want to run another test. Or maybe as you've been working on the baseline, they've been modifying the application still. It's an ongoing process. So you'll want to run a test before you put this baseline into SCCM, right? So why don't we just, before I run my test, once you're finished and you're happy with that baseline, there's a couple ways to manage it. You can export that to a CAB file. I know you don't see the 2016 version listed here, and I know we support 2016. I don't know if we need another option on here. Maybe someone can ask that question and then Dan will answer it. So, but probably the easiest route to go is just to export that directly to SCCM. Okay, so all you need to do is specify the SCCM server and username and password as well. And you'll be able to push that out into your SCCM server. So a couple of ways to do that. Let's now run a test of this baseline. So there's a policy test wizard, nothing that complex here. We just want to select which baselines we want to test. And you might want to test more than one baseline at a time. I'm just going to test the one that we've created here. Select next. Now you need to pick the server that you want to test against. So you'd need to specify the domain name in the computer, hit add, and it'll add it to the list down below. Or if you've got a large list of servers you want to run a test against, then you can put that list of servers into a file and import that here in order to get a bigger list of computers you want to run the test against. I'm just going to test it against my local host. Okay, select next. And now I need to pick a folder where I want to store these results. I've already created a folder earlier, so I'm just going to use that same folder. You could choose not to save the test results, but you might want to come back to those afterwards. There's an option to create a new folder if you wanted to. Okay, let's go ahead and kick this test off. We'll just let that run. It shouldn't take very long at all. Okay, that was not long. And there's my test results. Now I've already customized this grid. Just going to set that back, and let's just go through the list here. I'll scroll to the right and you can see some of the things in here. Start and finish time, the configuration item itself. There's my prohibited application, and you'll notice under the config item result it says it failed, and we expect that because I do have iTunes installed here. If I ran it against Dan's computer or a server on the network, then we definitely would probably not fail that test because it's a prohibited application. It's discovered the Garmin Express application, and we can see that's passed. Let's scroll to the right. There's your baseline name, a little bit of information on the expectation, so we can see the 3 required applications and the prohibited application. There's the settings name column, the source, setting source, whether it's a registry. We did put quite a few in there. There's a few for the script. I meant to show you that option as well, so we might just add one more. Whether or not the setting exists, the rule name, rule result, we can see which one's passed and failed. So I'm sure you'll come up with creative ways to group this. For example, another one to group might be configuration result, and that was the default I had earlier. If I wanted to focus on things that had failed, that would be one way to do it. And then you, once again, for documentation purposes, highlight what you want. You could just use that copy and paste, or you might want to export those to Excel, and it will honor the same custom grouping when you create that spreadsheet. Okay, so that's my test results. There was one more I wanted to come. Let's come back to this policy. Check that out quickly for editing. And I meant to show this. You could add, when you add a script, just coming over onto the right-hand side, here you can see the script body. And so you could replace this with what you need in here and then hit save. And that's how you would go about using a script CI type. Okay, so we've gone through the test, the export. The next thing I'd like to show you is, over time you'll find out that the application changes. Maybe you've upgraded, a hot fix or a service pack, or the OS has changed. There could be lots of reasons that, over time, 6 months, a year, that baseline is no longer valid, and you've brought in, a consultant to tweak or tune or optimize the application. Things have changed, and you've got an old baseline now. So you need to update that baseline, but you don't really necessarily know off the top what the consultant did in order to optimize that application. So you load your baseline, okay, and just right-click on the baseline and choose Update. So this is similar to running a test. You could now point it at that server on the network. I'm just going to use my local machine. And what it's going to do is it's going to list down in the bottom of the designer window here everything that failed. So we can see 4 items in here, the prohibited application, here's a validation rule. That's one of the items I'd copied from the other baseline, allow secure boot for integrity validation. Here's one I took out of the Sentinel. So both of those failed. Here's the Windows 10 Enterprise. Let's use that one as an example. So if I click on this, it will actually find that CI type above, and then I can edit it. Or let's try one of the other ones. Here's the secure boot we pasted. So I've used that option, the error list down below, to more quickly find the CI so I can correct it. Let's do that for the OS version. I know I'm doing this a bit of a reverse, so we're going to take that from a higher number back to a lower number. Pardon me. Edited that to 0. Save that. Pardon me. Check it in. Okay, just close those things off. Pardon me. So, bear with me for 1 second. Just want to run that update one more time. It must be checked out in order to be changed. So it's rerunning that test. This time we should only get 3 errors down below. And there they are. We fixed the Windows Update one. Okay, so we're nearing the end of the presentation. I see we still have a few minutes there. So if you do have questions, I see some have come in. I haven't been monitoring those at all, but I will come back to them. There's just one more thing I wanted to share with you. When we sent about the invite, we talked about the HITRUST baseline. This is something we developed in partnership with HITRUST and Microsoft. And if we have any healthcare companies on the call today, you'll probably find this very interesting. But I'm just going to open that and show you some of the controls that we have in here. So here's the HITRUST baseline. I'll just open that up. Okay, and so in here there's approximately 50 or so CIs, and these are these are safeguards that map to HIPAA controls. Okay, and so we'll just take a look at some of them. There's your antivirus presence that we're checking for, object access enabled. Here's some FIPS encryption enabled, guest account disabled. So it's going to check all of these. So you could export this into your SCCM environment and run these. There's lots of good items in here. Maximum password age, password complexity, Windows firewall auto start. Use Kerberos for network access. Okay, so all of these safeguards would run in your environment. If I ran a test of this against my laptop, it would fail miserably. Pardon me. But this will be shipped as a part of the package that you'll download. So this recording will take a little while to process, and if we can get that uploaded to our servers today, we'll send that around later today. Otherwise, it'll be sometime tomorrow when we ship that out. If there are any questions we haven't been able to answer today, we'll review those and send some more details in a follow-up afterwards as well. And so we'll continue to respond to any questions that come in. I'm just going to pause the recording at this point. And there's my email address. I'll send that around in the chat window as well. So if you have any special requests, we can make sure we answer those. You can send me an email. And you should have that in the chat window now. I'm just going to open the questions myself, and let's see what we've got here. Okay. Doesn't seem like that many questions really, which is fine, but I see, yes. Can CP Studio be used as a standalone tool, or you really need SCCM in the picture? And Dan's provided the answer here. Yes, CP Studio can be used by itself, just the way I did. Maybe you've got a smaller environment and you just want to do an occasional test. By all means, you could do that as well. Pardon me, I need to clear my throat again. Got a bit of a dry cough there. So we do have another product that's called Compliance Manager, which you may want to consider as well. So if you want to explore that route, by all means, it works great. You can probably access baselines elsewhere as well and use those in CP Studio to run separately. Okay, I'm just going to back up one more time to this other slide before I close things out. And just remind you, so we will be sending the download link for an evaluation copy of CP Studio. There will be an evaluation license embedded in that once you run the setup, which expires April 30th. We will also provide a copy of the Silex Sentinel Security Baseline. That's valid until April 30th. The special pricing is valid only until May 15th. So I recommend, if you are interested in that, I know lots of companies, there's red tape, it takes time. You could probably even start the process, request a quote, and submit that and see how it goes. But it does sometimes take a while. We realize that. So May 15th should be good for most companies. And yeah, so very good. Let's see if there are any more questions. If not, we'll probably close this session out shortly. Okay, so I see Danny's got a question regarding scheduling of the tests, and I'll ask Dan to confirm in the chat window. As far as I know, no. So, but that's a good feature request, and I'll make sure it gets submitted to the team for consideration. I like that idea, especially if you're going to run it in a standalone method. So I didn't talk about remediation. There is a question here on remediation scripts. And yes, you can. We do support remediation in the application. And Dan's answer that he's posted here is you can link remediation with any CI that can, it could be VB script, JavaScript, or PowerShell. So if you have more questions about the remediation when you're doing your evaluation, you'd like a little bit of help with that, we're happy to do that. We can set up one of these webinars very quickly and guide you through the process of doing that. Okay, we'll hang tight for a few more minutes here because I see there's still a good number of you connected, and there may be some more questions. Here's the option. I just right-click on the CI and I can select the remediation script. And let's see, over on the right-hand side in the Properties option, you can see in here, here's my remediation section. There's the script body, and so there's where you would put your script. Hopefully that will give you enough to go on, but yes, by all means, happy to set up one of these webinars, and I'll invite Dan to get on and help out if required. So it's gotten quiet in terms of questions. This is a great opportunity while I've got Dan here. So if you do have any more questions, we'll wait just a couple more minutes before I close the session, and then we'll look forward to setting you up with your own evaluation. Okay, it looks like there are no further questions. So on behalf of, okay, there's one comes in right now from Russell. Yes, sorry, Russell, I don't quite understand your question. I'm not sure if there's enough information there. How is that done? So I'll drill down to keys that were already there. I don't know if you can expand on that at all, Russell. And yeah, so Russell, if you can expand on that at all, we'll be happy to try to give you a response. Danny, thank you, and yeah, by all means, run that evaluation. Look forward to your feedback. Oh, can you create registry keys? So if I understand your question, let's do this. General settings. Okay, first I need to make sure I've got this checked out. Yes. So I come to general settings, and there's an option here to add CI type. And hopefully this is what you're referring to. If I want to add a registry setting, I just select this and then use the builder to either connect to my local machine or a machine on the network. So when we do this, if I use the machine on the network, once I hit OK, we're going to connect to the registry on that remote box. And it would be just the same as using my local machine here. And so here's the registry keys on my laptop. And so now I can go in here and go to local machine software and pick any key, or if I want to, I can drill down, for example, I don't know, Macromedia, Flash Player. Maybe I just want something as simple as the version, and I can hit add, and it's that simple. But you could put some, the entire apologize if I'm using the wrong term, but if you didn't want just the value, you want the whole thing, that's very easy to do. Back into local machine software, macro media, and I could put the whole Flash player folder if I want. Okay, so there's quite a bit more going in there. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, I think so. Russell, by all means, when you get the link, download it, check it out, and seeing is believing, and try it out yourself, and if you have any questions, let us know, okay? So on behalf of Dan, myself, and everybody else at Silex Software, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. Really appreciate the questions and the patience while we work through that. I apologize for my dry cough. It is what it is, but thank you once again, and have a good rest of the day.